Yours truly, 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 baby, truly. Baby, need love. Can you feel the rush? I'm yours truly, 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 baby, truly. Pull me close and you say you'll never run away. You think that love is a game and that we've gonna take. But what we have is what one spends a lifetime searching for.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Collegiate Star League's Fall Hearthstone Season Finals, brought to you by Blizzard and Twitch. As always, I'm Nomo Dogan, and casting with Lucia.
Alright, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is it, the moment you've been waiting for, the finals here at CSL Hearthstone. Looks like we've got the McGill University Redmen versus Georgia Institute of Technology, Hearthstone A.
I'm super excited for this match. Georgia Tech has been doing so well throughout this season. I think Bloody Face is their star player. They've got some other really good players, but he's been doing really well, especially with his Warrior decks throughout the weeks, just taking a lot of wins, some losses here and there, but yeah, a lot of the players have been playing really well, though, so far, from these teams especially, because, of course, they're in the finals. They've made it here. They've proven that they've got what it takes, and we'll see who can take the win.
Yeah, and so for Don here, in the quarterfinals, he played Warlock, and then in the semifinals played Warrior. The Warrior actually losing that game. On the other side, Brewski winning with both Priest and Paladin, and I think he usually plays something else as well. So these players, knowing that their opponents are going to scout them out, research what they do, are all changing it up. So I'm excited to see what they're going to go for here.
Right. So the first game is going to be between Dawn from McGill and Brewski from Georgia Tech. I think they're pretty standard lineups at this point. Their rosters go in this order pretty much every time. So
yeah, I think McGill actually switches it up, tries to figure out, I don't know what specifically goes into their strategy, but they do change their lineup. Georgia Tech, on the other hand, has been using the exact same lineup each time. I think they realize that, their players all can play a pretty wide range of decks, and at this point, they just sort of leave it the same, which means, of course, if it goes to a Game 4 or Game 5, McGill's going to be going on very little information. Aurelia, notably, hasn't even played in the quarter or semifinals. since Georgia was able to win the quarters 3-0 and the semis 3-0 and the quarters 3-1. So
Yep.
it'll be interesting to see how that works out for them.
Yeah, some impressive scores there. And we are in game one mulligans here. The players taking their time, want to make sure they get everything right. It is going to be Dawn on Druid versus Brewski on Hunter. A matchup that traditionally favors the Hunter, I think, especially the mid-range Hunter with Savannah high mains. Those can be a big problem for Druid, but with pretty much any Druid matchup, the Druid can come out blazing and just play a bunch of minions early on with Wild Growth and Innervate. They can definitely get ahead, as well as Darnassus Aspirant.
Yeah, we've definitely seen it go both ways, right? It's either the hunter manages, even if it's a more aggressive hunter, either the face hunter manages to kill the druid or the druid manages to just barely have combo turn 9 or turn 7 and kill the face hunter instead. So this matchup could definitely go both ways.
Yep. As we see a Darnassus Aspirant ready for turn 2 there from Dawn. Probably just bluffing and Innervate there, taking his time with his first turn, maybe thinking some things out. Combo is not what you want to have in your opening hand, especially against Hunter. But Darnassus Aspirant and Swipe, two very solid cards, even though Darnassus Aspirant will probably get killed off pretty early on.
Brewski here, deciding what he wants to do. Probably doesn't need to use the coin here, especially, just to get out a Haunted Creeper. It's different if it was like you had 2 1-mana guys you wanted to get out, or something like I wouldn't say a Knife Juggler, because if you're playing against a Druid, they can Wrath that easily, but something that's a little more threatening. Whereas here, just to get a Haunted Creeper, you could save your coin for something a lot better.
Yep. And now Dawn has come across an interesting choice, a Wild Growth drawn. He knows that Brewski has the coin, so if he plays his Darnassus Aspirant, coin Eaglehorn Bow is a possibility. But I don't think I would be too worried about that. I think the thing I'm looking at here is that Darnassus Aspirant can kill off a Mad Scientist or some other small minion if Brewski plays one. And you can always just play the other Wild Growth effect the next turn, whichever one you don't play here. So does opt for the Darnassus Aspirant. Now it's up to Brewski to decide what he wants to do about it. He actually has Quick Shot available if he decides he wants to do that, or he could just play Haunted Creeper, Eaglehorn Bow it off next turn. Something along those lines, but
Yeah,
letting
it's
the Druid get to 4 mana is kind of scary.
It's the classic decision, do you play the Wild Growth because you're guaranteed to get Darnassus plus hero power or a swipe next turn? Or if you play the Darnassus, you get the minion presence on the board, but there is the chance that you obviously won't have 4 mana for next turn.
Yeah, I like the decision to kill off the Darnassus Aspirant. Using the Eaglehorn Bow instead of the Quick Shot, I think it might have been better to save the coin. There's the chance that Quick Shot draws a card later, though. Ooh, and a Web Spinner to fill this out perfectly, so that's a fantastic draw there. Now he uses all of his mana. Next turn he could use some other card to play, and wow, Dawn has a pretty heavy hand. Double Ancient of Lore, combo, and a swipe, which is not very effective at the moment. This turn might just be hero power into the Web Spinner and pass.
Yeah.
It's definitely not what you want to see at this point in the game.
I mean, the swipe would get rid of all the beasts on Brewski's side, but I don't know that Dawn really feels that urgently, as far as having to, remove any possible chance that Brewski is able to taunt up with the Houndmaster.
Yeah. He could swipe and Force of Nature next turn and then Ancient of Lore the following turn. So maybe he'll set up for that, but it looks like he's going to go with the hero power. And yeah, he's probably not feeling very happy with his hand. I mean, he had multiple Wild Growth effects, but when you don't really have anything to follow up with, you've got to be feeling kind of bad about it. Ooh, Captain's Parrot off the Web Spinner. I'm assuming Brewski doesn't have any pirates in here.
That'll be a fun one. It's like, oh, okay, well, that was useful. Fortunately, Captain's Parrot doesn't come up often enough to, just throw in a pirate in your deck. Maybe if there was, like, a more playable pirate, It's like, it's just on the cusp of playable, that if you get a Captain's Parrot, it works out really great, and if you don't, it's not like a terrible card to play.
I've actually thought about doing something like that, but I think just changing that one card can kind of mess with your deck a lot. Whereas Captain's Parrot doesn't come up very much, so I personally don't think it's worth it. Maybe if it was more of a Control Hunter deck and you have Web Spinner in the early game, you could go for that, but
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, obviously, that, the decks are all pretty fine-tuned, where it's like, if you change one card, right, it might change your win percentage from, 52% to 40-something, and now you're losing. So it's a delicate balance, when things all work out to the end. So you can't just go ahead and toss one card in and hope that, nobody will notice, everything will just go fine.
Yeah, so I would like to see the Lotheb this turn. It's a good lead into Savannah Highmane. I don't really want to attack into the Druid of the Claw because you have Freezing Trap up. You want to make Dawn do that. Although Dawn might not. He might play around the Freezing Trap and not give Brewski the extra charge. We'll see. Ancient Lord definitely seems like a solid play though. Going for the draw as you're only at 29. So hopefully find some good options. A second Force of Nature, not what you want to see. But maybe this will let him get really aggressive. It also gives him a good way to deal with the Freezing Trap without losing his Druid of the Claw next turn. Although he already had a Force, but
yeah, it's nice though because you also keep that 2 mana for 2 damage in your hand, right? So it's almost better in a sense where you can split off your Force of Nature into 2 pieces. See, I really wish he would have kept his coin, because then he could have coined out the Savannah Highmane. At 7 mana, and with the board that Dawn had, he's obviously not going to lethal Brewski with combo. And again, it would be like if he even had combo plus Innervate, right? So if he had the coin, then it would have been nice to coin out the Savannah Highmane and save Lotheb for a turn where he felt like he could be in trouble against combo.
Yeah. I think it still works out nicely though, just having the Lotheb in play. If you have it for that sweet spot later on, it can be good, but a lot of the time you just want to play it before then because you really want the 5/5 body. And
yeah, I agree with his play of, if you had, at that point he had 5 mana and didn't really have anything else to play, so going for Lotheb makes sense, but if he had the coin, he would have had the option of getting the Savannah out instead.
Right. So Dawn does have a read here that this is Freezing Trap, of course. Goes in and takes it out with a Treant. And can deal pretty well with a lot of this board. He can take out the first side of the Highmane, kill off the Hyena, and kill off the Lotheb. So pretty solid play. And Brewski hasn't really gotten that much damage on Dawn yet, so I'd say this game is looking really favorable right now for Dawn.
Yeah, pretty nice way of dealing with the Savannah Highmane. Usually quite a headache for any class to deal with. But definitely
reassessing. Reassessing what I just said here. Dr. Boom being drawn with no BGH in hand from Dawn could mean big problems going into these next couple of turns.
Well, he has 9 mana, so a Force of Nature plus the other Treant would do it. Definitely not how I would want to spend my mana and my trees, but
yeah.
Not at 10 mana either, so he couldn't hope for the Ancient of Lore into BGH. He would have to draw the Innervate and BGH, and at that point, it's a little too risky to even bother trying for that.
Right. This is a difficult turn here for Dawn. If only he had a BGH.
He can swipe, use the Treant, and his face to clear, but that doesn't feel good.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of damage. He also won't be able to build any board presence of his own if he does that. I think it's really important as Druid to find a way to build up your own board, but that's so difficult right now. You can see these boom bots. Even if you play Shaded Naxxramas with Stealth, there's a good chance it's just gonna die.
Time waits for no one.
At this point, you might just have to combo to kill off Dr. Boom.
I don't think that's a winning play though. I think to win the game,
so
I
much
think
damage to take right now as well, though.
yeah.
He's got to do something, though.
I mean, I like not using combo. His board will probably still die here. This also gives himself the out of drawing BGH. Like, he can lure for draw next turn and then possibly find a BGH right on time.
Yeah, that's true.
A little late, I guess, but
He's got 17 cards, though, so not even through half his deck. That might be quite problematic.
yeah. It would be 3 total draws,
Yep.
but we'll see. Definitely in a rough spot.
He is also trying to set up for combo, though, which I like.
Yeah.
First Boombot kills off the Shade, though.
Yeah, Boombot's so strong. This is a board clear. One of them hits face, but you can still trade off a Hyena. And you can also Houndmaster up as well as play Piloted Shredder. And Brewski is just keeping the pressure coming now. That Dr. Boom was such a turning point in this game. Oh, decides to go with Web Spinner over Piloted Shredder. That's kind of curious to me, but I guess it maximizes his damage for this turn.
Yeah, I don't see the point of it. No. Okay, so he didn't want some freak accident to happen, right? Where you swipe and you get a Doomsayer and then he clears off his board. At this point, that's like one of the only ways he could lose, so...
Yeah, that's a good point.
When you're that close to winning, then you actually don't want to play your Piloted Shredder.
Although, if Dawn did draw the Miracle BGH here, he could play the BGH, clean up the board a little bit, and possibly have a chance at coming back in the game since the Piloted Shredder wasn't played.
Still be pretty rough, I think.
Yeah. I think it's more unlikely you get Doomsayer than the likelihood of your opponent drawing BGH, but then again, I guess you have to figure out what are the odds that they actually win after that, so lots of things to think about here, of course, and combo coming down now, just being used to clear, definitely does not feel good as the Druid player. Wow, Fierce Monkey is actually a pretty good card, I would say,
Yeah.
at this point. Although, yeah, he just have lethal. So I guess it didn't matter what he got off the Web Spinner there, as Quick Shot, Eaglehorn Bow, Houndmaster, and Hero Power is a lot of damage. Exact lethal, he even had some overkill along with Knife Juggler there, so that's going to be a win for Brewski to start off the series. Georgia Tech 1-0 over the McGill Redmen. That's going to be Druid getting taken out along with Georgia Tech using their Hunter. So those two classes are down for their respective teams.
Alright, next up we have Charles versus Bloody Face. Charles did not get to play in the quarterfinals and played a mage in the semifinals, unfortunately. I believe it was a tempo-ish mage. It wasn't freeze mage, and it lost to a paladin, just not having enough, damage. You started running out of cards, whether you're playing a tempo or mech mage. On the other hand, Bloody Face, in the quarterfinals, he played a hunter successfully. In the semifinals, I think Bloody Face throughout the season has been playing a lot of warrior, and he just got counterpicked there, going up against a druid and losing that matchup. So we'll have to see, if he goes back to his trusty warrior. Of course, Bloody Face used to play some rogue as well, so we'll have to see if he decides to pull that out with the new expansion, making some rogue decks somewhat viable.
Right. We're just getting ready for these players to get in game here. Now that Bloody Face knows Druid out of the way, he could play Control Warrior, but I think he's a pretty big fan of Patron. But we'll see what he brings to the table. And wonder what Charles will bring. There's still a lot of classes available, obviously. Warlock always seems good to me. I really like Warlock these days. Paladin is also good. Lots of ways you can go. I think pretty much any class has a playable deck right now. So.
Alright. These players just, there's no deck list that you have to submit ahead of time or classes. So these players can decide what to do depending on what they've seen. They can make tech changes within their decks. Sometimes they want to take a little bit more time, especially since it's the finals. They want to make sure that they've absolutely done their best here. I mean, for example, Charles could throw in a Harrison Jones into whatever he's playing, just because, Bloodyface played Hunter and Warrior, and even if he's playing Rogue, that's still somewhat useful. So, if I was Charles, I think throwing in a Harrison Jones against Bloodyface would definitely be a reasonable tech choice.
Yeah, I agree.
Alright, and both players just getting ready to go here. For those of you just tuning in, this is the CSL Hearthstone Division Finals between McGill University and Georgia Institute of Technology. At the moment, Georgia Institute of Technology is up 1-0, and we are ready to start off Game 2.
Alright. Let's do this. Let's see what classes the players have here. Loading up into game, and we have Charles on Warlock against Bloodyface on Druid. Right off the bat, a Raven Idol being seen in Bloodyface's hand. One of the new cards from the latest wing, the last wing of League of Explorers. And in Charles' hand, it seemed like he had an Ancient Watcher before he mulliganed, so I'm guessing it's Handlock, Demon Lock variant, seeing as he has Mal'Ganis. Bloodyface goes ahead and mulligans the Raven Idol. I like that decision because it's not something you actively want early game. You want it late game as a versatile card where you can choose what you need. Like if you need to kill something, you can look for a spell that kills it. Or if you need just some beefy minion, you can play a Raven Idol, get a beefy minion in play, and go from there. But as for the early game, Druid has some of the best early game cards, so I like mulliganing that away.
Alrighty then. So he does have the Mountain Giant and the 2 Twilight Drakes. So a decent starting hand here for Charles. And Bloodyface does pick the Innervate, so he gets his piloted Shredder out. Otherwise, his hand pretty top heavy at the moment.
Yep. I think this matchup tends to favor the Druid nowadays with double combo. And Handlock being such a slow deck, I mean, you can get ahead on board, you can make these big monsters, but Druid, if they have their 1 BGH, which Bloodyface does not right now, it would be really helpful to kill off a Giant or Silence to kill off Twilight Drake. Assuming Druid has like one of those answers, they can put themselves into a good spot, especially with combo, to set up for lethal damage within 6, 7, 8, or 9 turns against Handlock. Ooh, 2 Force of Nature's in hand for Bloodyface. Definitely not what he wants to see here. This might be time to just skip a turn, or he could swipe the Drake.
He can coin out the Druid of the Claw if he wants to, and hope to pick something up for next turn.
Yeah. I just don't like it as much because if he saves the coin, he can play Druid of the Claw next turn, and then turn 6 he can coin Dr. Boom. Seems pretty good, but we'll see what he decides here. If he goes with the Druid of the Claw, or if he decides to just Hero Power, maybe swipe. I mean, you could just swipe face and get the damage rolling, but that might be a little bit too aggressive.
Yeah, pretty awkward turn here for the Druid. Looks like he does in fact coin out the Druid of the Claw, just wants to put on more pressure at the moment.
Yep. Protecting his mad scientist, ever so important, as Druids don't have secrets, so when that guy dies, He's not proving anything with his science. There's nothing.
What would Druid's secrets even be?
Oh, I don't know. They would cost 0 mana along with the other 0 mana druid
Oh,
cards.
yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, that's a good start.
And then they would just be really weak because 0 mana cards are really weak.
That is also fair. I guess they could probably just like buff his own guys, right?
Yeah, if you had like a secret that when your opponent reaches 5 mana, you get an extra mana crystal or something.
Yeah, who knows?
Charles going with the tap here. Just got this Drake in play. Gonna double Mortal Coil off that Druid of the Claw.
Almost like this play. I think I would have liked to go for the coil draw before the tap draw.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe
Because at
he
that
was
point you
looking.
have 3 mana. I guess you don't really pick up anything for 3 mana. Well, if he had a... If he picked up a Dark Bomb, maybe he would have used that to kill off the Scientist instead of drawing again.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Also, he could have just played something. Or actually, he didn't. He could have played the other Twilight Drake, but at that point in time, he didn't have the Sludge Belcher in hand, so that wasn't an option. But the Void Caller being seen for him spells a great way for Mal'Ganis to get into play, which could be very important to gaining this victory here. Bloody Face, after a little bit of deliberation there, decides on the swipe on the Drake, keeping that Shade and Stealth. A good decision, I think, because I believe at this point he recognizes it's handlock or something along those lines, maybe a control lock deck, and most of those decks do play Ironbeak Owls. So keeping Shade and Stealth for a long time is really nice to guarantee extra damage off Savage Roar later, as well as just maximum burst. You also don't want to put your opponent too low for Molten Giant. Something that doesn't come up as much these days, playing around Molten Giants, since handlock has been out of popularity for a while. So.
Yeah, with Reno showing up, you don't really care about the 1. Obviously, you kind of, you don't want to throw all your direct damage cards at them, since they might just Reno their health back up. But if it's just damage dealt by your minions, then you don't really care and can just go ahead and throw those at his face.
Yep. Druid of the Claw here for Bloody Face.
It's definitely a decent pickup.
Yeah.
But it looks like he's gonna go with the trees instead.
I like the Force here since you have 2. It's a fair way to remove Theracin. I mean, obviously Theracin paid off really good. You already got a bunch of discounts. But you still want to get it off the board somehow. And it seemed like the best way to do it there.
Charles is getting pretty low here. Obviously, a Innervate combo would kill him. Just a set of trees wouldn't do it, and just a Savage Roar also wouldn't do it.
Yeah, also, if he doesn't taunt Druid of the Claw, Innervate Savage Roar would kill him. So a couple combinations along with Innervate that could finish off Charles if he doesn't taunt. So I would like to see him prioritize that here. Just get a taunt up, make sure you're safe against the Druid. Or maybe he thinks that he needs more power immediately. Maybe he'll go for something like Mountain Giant Twilight Drake or Mountain Giant Void Caller. That way he can get the Mal'Ganis up.
I think getting the Mountain Giant down is nice, and of course getting the Void Caller down, so with Mal'Ganis, then, he can't combo you down before killing the Mal'Ganis, which takes 7 whole damage away.
Right, and Bloody Face does not have any answers at the moment to these cards. No Silence and no BGH. So this is probably a bit of a headache. He doesn't want to put his opponent too low. At the same time, he can't really deal with his board. Probably doesn't want to give up his Shade. Dr. Boom seems like the autopilot play here, but
You also
Bloody
have
Face...
to be careful with the Shade that if you just let it sit around, right, like your opponent might just go ahead and Shadow Flame to kill it off.
Yeah.
So do you... It also doesn't feel good to trade it off here, obviously, so kind of an awkward spot.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what he does because I think a lot of people would opt to just play Dr. Boom and pass. Okay, looks like he puts the 2 damage on Charles's face.
Oh, when the
Ooh.
Shadow Flame comes.
Wow. Yeah, I assume he does play 2 Shadow Flames in this deck, so it's probably a pretty likely thing to happen, but man.
Yeah, like I
That
said,
is
you know, even
brutal.
even that, like it feels so bad just trading away your Shade and a Scientist into his Mountain Giant, but I think this is a decent spot for it. You can just go face, Shadow Flame the Giant, and then throw down the Sludge Belcher.
Yeah, that seems fine to me. Along with the Shadow Flame, the Boombots might put you to a health where you can play Molten Giant for free as well, so that would be nice to weave in
Yeah,
this
that's
turn.
true. Or it gets Mal'Ganis out on the board. Looks like neither is going to happen.
Well, it'll probably happen eventually. Void Caller could also just pull out the other Void Caller there.
Oh, that's true. Did forget about that.
Yeah, Bloody Face has to go back to the drawing board now as everything has been dealt with. That poor Shade did nothing.
Yeah, that's the thing,
Raven
right?
Idol.
Like, it feels so bad, but at the same time, you can't just trade it in there.
Yeah, you make him have it, and unfortunately Charles did have it in that situation. Raven Idol revealing Bite, Claw, and Healing Touch. 3 cards that are not super impressive, but I guess Bite is 4 damage or Claw is 2 damage. Take your pick. Claw is a little more mana efficient, like mana to damage ratio. It's 1 for 2 rather than 4 for 4. So it goes with that instead. He can tack that onto a Force of Nature Savage Roar turn for maybe the last needed points of damage.
So here he can play the Void Caller and then trade in his other Void Caller to get the guaranteed Mal'Ganis. And after that, also play out his Molten. So it's looking pretty good here. He could have gone for the tap if he wanted the no damage tap, but getting a Molten Giant down, definitely really nice. And Bloody Face now in quite a bit of trouble. The Fel Reaver just showing up, unfortunately. Would have liked that a lot earlier.
I can see.
Oh, yeah. Not really much you can do. There's so much stuff on the board. You have to get through the Sludge Belcher. He didn't have a keeper. And even after getting through that, you know, having to get through Mal'Ganis, and then finally being able to deal damage to Charles's face. So Charles will go ahead and take that win from McGill, tying it up 1-1. And alright, good start to the series so far.
Yeah, I mean, that's a reasonable concession there from Bloody Face, I think. At that point, the Shadow Flame really just did him in. And he felt he had no way to recover, so yeah, that does put it at 1-1. Now Warlock is out of the way for one of the schools. Druid is out of the way for both. So I think that feels nice if you have Warlock still available. Because, you know, at least I've said a lot, I really like that class right now. I think there's a lot of flexibility with it. You can do a lot of powerful things. Handlock was an interesting way to do it. Looks like it worked out, though, as long as it pulls the win. It is nice to have, of course. So, even though Handlock isn't that popular these days, it can definitely still win, as we saw there. Now we're getting ready for this next game. Between
We've got Wembos versus Zabri. Now, Wembos played a Warrior in the quarters and a Warlock in the semis. So, really digging that W thing. You know, his name starts with a W and playing the W classes. And on the other hand, we have Zabri, who played Paladin and Druid in his quarter and semi matches. Both players actually 2-0 in both of those, so both looking very strong.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this series could definitely go either way. Uh, Bloodyface, I said, like, I think it's a star player. He's out now. Unfortunately, he took a loss. We'll see if these other players can bring it back. I mean, it's not like they're behind, but if they can really get them ahead in this series and close it out and win in favor of Georgia Tech, I mean, I feel like Georgia Tech has just shown a lot of dominance over this season, so I feel like they're favored to win this. But the McGill Redmen, of course, have also done very well. Of course, they're in finals, so yeah, should have a lot more interesting games here, possibly 5. I mean, I expect 5 at this point since they're both really good teams with good players. So
Yeah,
the
and the other
players-
thing is, this is the game that sort of, I guess, the least amount of pressure, right? Because if you win, you really help your team by putting them at match point. But, you're starting off at 1-1. If you lose, you haven't completely lost the game for your team. So this is sort of the high impact moment, I would say, for both of these players.
Yeah, yeah. I
Because
mean,
after that, you're
definitely.
sort of playing like either, okay, you're going to win the game, or you're, trying not to lose the whole thing for your team.
Fight with honor.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you hope you get your win in your game. It would not feel good to be the guy to lose and then just like let your team down and stuff. But hopefully they don't feel too much pressure. I would hope at this point in the season these guys are all pretty good friends and they know that everyone takes their losses sometimes in Hearthstone, and this just happens to be the time where it counts a lot. So
Hey,
it looks like the
McGill-
players.
McGill is
Thank you.
Canadians. They're not going to, do any kind of this. BM, what is this? Come on.
But anyways, we're going to have Wenbos on Warrior versus Zebras on Paladin. Looks to me like a pretty standard mid-range Paladin list right off the bat. I see Harrison Jones, Big Game Hunter. Two pretty standard tech choices these days, and it looks like Wenbos has Patron Warrior, as there's a patron there in his hand.
Indeed. And Wenboss keeping up with his W streak, as it were. Picking up the Warrior once again. I'm not sure if he actually played a Patron. Might have been a Control Warrior in the quarters. So, switching it up as much as he can, but still staying within, the range of playing classes only beginning with W.
Right. So, considering a couple of things here, he does have Armorsmith, Acolyte, Deathspite, Grim Patron. Has a really solid curve there from Wenbos. Probably hoping to get something like an Inner Rage so he can make more than just a couple patrons. On Zebras' side, his hand seems alright too. Harrison Jones, he did keep it off the mulligan because Warrior has a ton of weapons. It's usually worth the keep. Knife Juggler can deal with the Armorsmith nicely. Or Acolyte of Pain, I guess, depending on what happens there. Quartermaster could pay off later in the game, but it tends to not be so good early on against Patron Warrior because they have a lot of ways to kill off the 1/1s, obviously with Whirlwinds. And, they're small minions like Armorsmith and Acolyte of Pain. So, I think the Knife Juggler would be a solid play here, as a 1/1 just dies to the Armorsmith, so. I mean, along with Knife Juggler, you hope you draw something to play next turn. Like a 3-drop would be perfect, although 3-drop is usually Alder Peacekeeper or Muster for battle. But we can see right now that Wenbos does not have a Whirlwind. He has a Deathspite, which would take a little while before it could clear the Muster for battle. And, Fireworks drawn. That's nice.
That's perfect. Actually,
Yeah, there's
didn't
the-
have a way to deal with the Knife Juggler, but picking that up.
Right. I mean, there is Quartermaster in Zebras' hand as well. Okay, no Muster drawn. I was going to say, if he did draw a Muster, that he could coin that out next turn. But, a rough break here. Might just need to hero power this turn.
Reporting for duty.
It looks like he's going to hero power. I mean, sometimes you can think about skipping it, right? Since your opponent has that Armorsmith, so really you're just trading 1 damage on the Armorsmith for 1 armor onto the Warrior.
Yeah. Something that could be interesting here as well is maybe Wenbos will leave the 1/1 alive because of the chance of drawing a card off of Acolyte. Decides against it. I assume the reason is probably because Keeper of Uldaman exists. I was going to say, if he leaves the 1/1 up, the Keeper of Uldaman can buff it, it can kill the Acolyte. Then Zebris would have a board of a 3/2 and a 3/4, which would be pretty solid. But
Yeah, and in general, the thing to do against Paladin is if they don't have any board presence, they really can't do much to you. So if it doesn't cost you that much to clear it, then, just play it safe and clear it off.
yep, I agree. Sludge Belcher probably doesn't feel good to play here because playing it into an Acolyte of Pain can set up for the Acolyte to draw a lot of cards.
So here, Wembos, he could go for the Deathspite and Whirlwind to clear, and also gets quite a few draws from that. He does toss away half of his War Axe. So maybe he'll see if he can pick something up, like maybe an Execute. Just gets a Frothing Berserker.
Yeah, plenty of Frothing Berserkers here.
So,
Usually not that effective against Paladin because their attack can just be reduced to 1 by so many things.
it's still something to... it means your opponent's using something up, so it's not the end of the world. So he's gonna keep his Deathspite and use the Armor Smith to clear off the first half of the Sludge, and of course, gets another draw on the Slime with the Acolyte of Pain if
Oh,
he
looks
made
like he
in
missed
time.
it. Yeah, wow. Man, that's rough. I mean, Patron Warrior turns can be difficult a lot of time, but he doesn't even have patrons in play yet. And unfortunately, he timed out there.
Yeah, I think just not accounting for the Sludge animation, because usually you can queue up all your actions, but, with the Slime not being there yet, he wasn't able to get that in.
Yeah. And now Zebris has his choice of Keeper of Uldaman to kill off the Acolyte of Pain, or he could True Silver Champion to kill it off, or kill off the Frothing Berserker. I mean, what's important right now? Preventing your opponent's draws seems pretty important, but at the same time, if you do that, you are going to end up taking a lot of damage off the Frothing. So he opts to kill that. Instead of killing the Acolyte, Wenbos is going to get the dream of drawing 3 cards off of his Acolyte, it seems.
Yep. And it's really not that bad of a... if you're like, oh, well, the Frothing just immediately dies, but it's 3 mana for a 5/4. That his opponent, it basically has taunt, and his opponent has to deal with immediately, so 5/4 as stats for a 3 mana card is already very great.
Agreed. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I wasn't really bashing on Frothing Berserker in the matchup in general. It's just there's a lot of ways for Paladin to deal with them effectively. Some other classes, not as much. But yeah, definitely still an effective card. Dread Corsair drawn, along with this Deathspite, could mean it could be played for free. Oh, he's attacking with the Deathspite too. Interesting. He could draw a lot of cards off of these Acolytes next turn. I mean, if you do that, then you don't get your Patron, I guess.
Well, he can either go for the Patron or the Acolyte next turn. We do know that there is a Harrison here for Zabri.
Yeah, which is a great card in this matchup. Because so many times the Patron Warriors try to set up their patrons with the Deathspite, but yeah, this is going to punish that.
Yeah, and to note here, Wembo's basically lost out on 4 damage to Zabriza's base because he did not get that attack in with the Acolyte. So we'll have to see if that potentially matters at the end of this game.
Yep. Maybe a little greedy there. I mean, keeping the Acolyte alive isn't too big of a deal because Deathspite will kill most things. If there's something with 2 health, I guess you could use your Acolyte and the Deathspite Death Rattle to finish it, but yeah, we'll see how that works out. It could come up later in the game. Execute drawn for Wenbos could be used to deal with this Harrison Jones. It's not the greatest target, but it's a solid target. And then you could follow it up with something like Frothing Berserker and Acolyte of Pain. That seems like a pretty reasonable turn to me. He does want to draw into some more ways to enable his Grim Patron now that he's lost his Death Spite.
Speak to me.
Yeah, I think the execute's definitely necessary here. He needs to start building something up on his own side of the board. And leaving that up, it'll trade very nicely into Lotheb. It could kill off a patron. It's just not something you want hanging out.
Yeah, I agree. On Zabrissa's side of the board, he's got a couple of choices.
A Knife Juggler will not be part of those.
And Knife Juggler doesn't seem that great against Acolyte of Pain or Frothing Berserker. Also, making a 1/1 is not very good. Maybe this turn is just a card Trueheart, and that's it. Just because like a 6/3 can actually do something on this board. You've already seen 2 weapons from your opponent. There's a reasonable chance that Justicar Trueheart will trade with Frothing Berserker, which obviously isn't a good trade, but other than that, you don't really have any other great plays. I mean, you could play the Shredder for the same reasons.
Yeah, the Justicar's sort of awkward in this case, because in a lot of matchups, having the 2 extra guys is great, but obviously in the Patron matchup, having another guy out is just another way for your opponent to buff their Frothing Berserker or to make more patrons.
But I feel like it's just a good use of his mana. Like,
but it's almost like he's never ever going to be able to make guys again unless he's going to use Quartermaster that turn. One guy you can maybe keeper it.
but I think it's okay for him to make guys. I mean, Warsong Commander isn't there to give patrons charge anymore. So it ends up being pretty equal. Like, Whirlwind deals with them, but Whirlwind deals with the 1 anyway, and it looks like he just timed out and did nothing. I feel like playing something, either Justicar or Potted Shredder, would have been better than nothing there, but...
Right, like, what's the worst thing that could happen to a Shredder? Right?
Yeah, I mean, he could have another weapon, and then he gets like a 1/1 off of it for the Acolyte of Pain, and that would hurt a lot, but... that's somewhat unlikely, but now he's just super far behind. The rope is on fast mode as it thinks the play is disconnected.
Oh.
Reporting for duty. To arms, men.
Okay, there we go. That's a pretty, I'd say that's some quick thinking involved, because to realize you had enough mana and just picking up that and remembering you had a Quartermaster in hand as the rope is, like 5-second ticking down at you. In general, it's obviously not, an mind-blowing play to play, I just forgot the 3 mana card's name. How does that even happen? To play Muster for Battle? How does that even happen? This is ridiculous. To play Muster for Battle and Quartermaster on the same turn with a mana is pretty standard generally, but, I think for him to be in that panic mode and remember that and do it, when he had that 5-second clock ticking, was still kind of reasonable.
I mean, the second you make an action, the rope will go away, and it'll be the normal timer.
Right, but if you just muster versus the board that Wembo's had, then, you really don't want to do that, right? You just leave a whole bunch of 1/1s for him to deal with the Frothing, with the Acolyte, so you kind of had to have both plays. If you just panic threw down a Shredder or a Justicar, it'd be different.
Yeah. Yeah, but, wow, Zebra's taking a lot of damage here, and Lotheb in play means this Consecration is extra expensive. He is on the ropes now, up against Winbuz's Grim Patron deck, which is...
He was on the ropes last turn, technically. He's not on the ropes right now.
Okay, you got me there. But, man. Can he survive? He looks like he's going for the 9-mana Consecration.
Okay.
This could all be solved if this Piloted Shredder leaves a Doomsayer.
Well, he should have... Okay, I was gonna say, he shouldn't start that way because the Piloted Shredder might come up with a taunt. and then he wouldn't be able to deal with one of Lothab or the Frothing Berserker. So this is the right ordering of things, even though, you know, obviously if he got a Doomsayer, he wouldn't want to trade all those other guys in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so right. I mean, Doomsayer is like very rare chance, so.
But yeah, the taunts have a lot higher chance of happening, so definitely would rather do that first. So,
Yep.
will he get the damage with Slam? Only a War Axe, I believe, would give him the immediate damage here.
Yeah.
Dr. Boom, certainly not it, but don't really see a way for Zabri to get back into this. You know, worst case scenario, Dr. Boom comes down, get a couple Boom bots on phase. He does have the Lay on Hands. Or, well, I guess at this point, yeah, you go for the heal bot instead.
Well, I mean, he could Lay on Hands, hit the Piloted Shredder, hope a Doomsayer comes out, and then concede if not. Or he could heal bot and do it that way.
Yeah, I think you heal bot. You can Eldor the 3-1.
I guess you go for Juggle and hope.
Ooh.
Hope it's a Doomsayer.
Okay. It didn't hit the 3-3 Patron. It's 25% chance, so definitely something that you could go for. And alright. Ooh.
I mean, that's a fine play. Yeah, just going for the Juggles. 2 things at 1 health.
Yeah, 2 Juggles. Neither of them hit the full health Patron, so this is good.
Right. Dr. Boom does seem like a very, very fine play here. I mean, your opponent's really low. Land Hands is available for Zebras, but he's just in such a rough spot. No really good ways to activate Battle Rage here.
Yeah. So I think at this point you just throw down Dr. Boom, armor up. If he was going to Battle Rage, then, you know, you would have done it before.
Yeah. And I think maximizing damage on face looks fine. You've got these 2 boom bots which can go crazy.
And with the Knife Juggler out as well, you know, always have that, oh god, moment.
Yeah, Knife Juggler right now on the board is like a game of Russian roulette. Just throw a knife. Does it hit the boom bot?
Well, thankfully, right, it's at least he has the Lay on Hands as opposed to having the heal bot. If he had the heal bot, it's like, okay, I'm gonna heal up. I think the heal does proc before the boom bots anyway, but it'd be a little bit, you know, scarier that way.
Yeah. Now, battle cries do go first.
Is he?
None may steal our secrets.
Okay, make a 3/3 Dr. Boom.
Well, this way he can't play Lay on Hands.
Yep.
So it looks
Hoping
like
for the
he's-
best off these heal bots. Or these boom bots.
Yeah, so I mean, this way he can Defender, so direct damage won't kill him, but
Yeah, this is the manhole play.
okay, still alive.
My shield for Argus.
And alright, still good.
Well, I mean, I think this is the best play in the long term. Like, you have to survive, of course, but assuming you do survive, it gives you the best chance of winning later on.
Alright, he's got the Battle Rage finally at a reasonable amount. Ooh, the Grom
And the
and the
Inner
Inner
Rage.
Rage, but he needs to get rid of everything on the board, so a ton
my
of damage
goodness.
isn't really what he's looking for at the moment. Alright, Boombot. He kills the 4/3 first, so there's less targets for the Boombots, and nope. The Boombots are gone. Unfortunately, Inner Rage can't be used to clear that mini-bot.
Yeah, I think you'd want to save for Grommash anyways, in case of a heal, because you can break through this taunt, and then Grommash is 12 damage guaranteed.
Yeah, for sure.
Unless...
I'd play the Dread Corsair. I'm wondering if you want to play the Patron as well. Since
I
you
actually
do
don't
get to hide.
Yeah, I actually don't feel that it's too bad, because, you know,
Ooh.
it's... it can get traded into, but you have Grom in a rage, and you're pretty much out of cards anyway, so you might as well just
Yeah, at this point, the only thing
do
that
everything.
keeps Sabri alive would be
Land hands into Holy Light.
yeah, I would say a taunt actually, so that some way to
Yeah.
keep that Grommash from being able to go face, right?
He had something like a Noyotron in his deck, I guess. But this is going to be lethal damage for Winbows. Grommash Inner Rage, the classic combo of 12 charging damage into Zebras' face. That's
And
gonna
we
be a
will not
2-1 lead.
see the Fiery War Axe into Piloted Shredder that pulls out a taunt that prevents him from Grommash
Yeah.
face.
Sure.
This is
Yeah.
the finals. I'm pretty sure nobody's going to risk any kind of BM here. Like, could you imagine losing your team the finals because you decided to BM?
Yeah, that would be really sad. We did see one game that was lost due to BM earlier in the season, and we will never speak of it again because that was so sad. But yep, hopefully that does not happen here in the finals. And that is a 2-1 lead for the McGill Redmen over Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech got some work to do if they want to pull this back, whereas McGill, they just need Mork to come through in this next game, pull out the win, and that would be it. Speaking hypothetically, of course, the game is still 2-1. We got to see what these players dish out here. There are a bunch of classes available.
Next up, we do have Mort versus Shrippers. Shrippers, of course, the winner of my unofficial favorite name of a player. So, Mort has played Druid and Paladin, 2-0 on that, and Shrippers not having to play in the quarters, and pulling out a Hunter for the semis. Looks like I don't really have any stats for him for previously. So, again, like I mentioned, Georgia Institute of Technology keeps their lineup the same every time. So, because they've been doing so dominantly, there's actually a lot less information, you know, for other players to research on Shrippers and Aurelia. So, McGill is up at the moment, but they're going to be running on less information as the games go on.
Yeah. That is indeed true. All those games played, all that information is out there if the guys did their research. But who knows? Who knows if they did? I mean, at this point, like going to the finals, you would hope they did at least some research to get some knowledge on these players, what they play, and those kind of things. But then again, in the finals, the players can mix it up. A lot of them probably play more than one class, more than one deck, or more than two. I mean, a lot of Hearthstone players have experience with all 9 classes and playing all kinds of different decks. So, but then again, working along with their studies, who knows how many different classes these guys have experience with. So.
Yep, and especially with the expansions coming in, you know, you can't just rely on your previous knowledge. There was a while where a couple months, you know, nothing really changed, so you could just go focus on your studies, come back, play a game, you know, and do reasonably well. So here for McGill, we've got Druid, Warlock, and Warrior taken out. So of the more popular classes, I'd say there's Hunter still available, Paladin, definitely a notable one, and everything else I think is a little bit more on the off side, like Priest, Shaman, Rogue, that sort of thing. On the other side, we have Hunter, Druid, and Paladin having been played for Georgia Institute of Technology. So there, generally I would say, you know, there is the Warlock, potentially Warrior, and Hunter. Oh, sorry, not Hunter. Yeah, so those are the two I would say that are more popular. And heading into game now, let's see what these players actually decide on for their classes.
Anduin versus Jaina.
You asked for it.
Alright, and in fact, proving us wrong, looks like it will be a Priest versus Mage. So both players going with something a little bit more unconventional. I like this as well because it does mean that for your last game, you won't just have one top tier class left, so your opponent can probably decide to counter that or be up against a, you know, less strong deck.
Yeah, for sure. This could be okay. I guess it's Dragon Priest right off the bat. We do see Blackwing Corruptor, Twilight Guardian, Sun Archmage there. This looks like a Freeze Mage deck for Schwippers, and I guess it's Dragon Priest from Morkt. I feel like in general this matchup favors the Freeze Mage because they can stall out for a long time against the mid-rangey minions of the Priest deck. Priest doesn't have a lot of burst. They don't have a lot of heals. I mean, you do have your hero power, but it's not like Warrior where you can stack it up. So I feel like this is going to be difficult for Morkt. We'll see how it goes. I mean, if he has a lot of heals, the matchup can definitely be better for him. But as far as applying pressure goes, Priest is not the best class for that.
Yeah, and they don't necessarily run Shadow Word Pain either. In the Dragon list, some do, so it could be possible if Morkt has that, then it won't be as dangerous, but you know, there's very few ways for Priest to really deal with a Frost Nova Doomsayer.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Shadow Word Pain would be the number one way, I guess, or Silence. A lot of people play Silence as a one-of, not the actual card Silence. Or do they play Silence and Priest? I mean, I've seen Spellbreaker here and there, but yeah.
I don't think so, especially with the Dragon version. There's just so many minion cards that you want to toss in that you don't really have that option.
Yep, that's true. So it's Shadow Word Pain or nothing to deal with these Doomsayers. Or maybe a Vol'jin Holy Nova combo on 10 mana, or Vol'jin Holy Smite. Sometimes people play Holy Smite with Vol'jin, but just like you said in these Dragon decks, it is hard to find slots for those things. Schwippers throwing out the Mad Scientist, doesn't really care that Northshire Cleric is in play and can just heal for a draw. I don't think that's too big of a deal. I think he's just fine with that. Like, pretty much all of the cards will be the same for the Priest when they're all minions, because they all just die to the AoE that Freeze Mage has access to. So
that Worm Rest unfortunately coming one turn too late, and now Morkt has to decide if he wants to go for the card draw or just play out. He could play out the Worm Rest to keep his Northshire alive. He could hit the Scientist and heal it up. It will die, but he will get one draw out of it. If he just plays the Cultist, then you know the Northshire is just going to die very likely.
yeah, that is true.
Yeah, I think the Worm Rest is the way to go here, but like I said, unfortunately, that's something you would have liked to have last turn. Would have made everything a lot nicer.
Yeah,
and you don't have time to, you know, wait it out compared to other decks. Here you really, you know, you need to put on the pressure before Freeze Mage can just keep clearing your guys and start dealing damage themselves.
Yep, it's just so hard to apply the pressure, but we'll see if Morkt can pull through here. Acolyte of Pain is a possible play. With this hand, though, you might want to save it until turn 5, where you can ping it in the same turn that you play it. That way you guarantee a draw, because if he does play it and it just gets Shadow Word Pain, that would be really, really bad, because then you wouldn't have a way to cycle into his other card draw spells, which is really important for Mage. You want to chain those together, Freeze Mage. And so I think it's probably worth it to hold on to that Acolyte, but looks like he decides that Shadow Word Pain isn't
But
big enough of a
Schwippers disagrees
possibility.
with you.
Yeah. I mean, against this board, it looks really nice because neither of these guys kill Acolyte of Pain in one hit, so it will pay off pretty well. And Shadow Word Pain is not there. But in my experience, I mean, like a ladder, whenever I do something crazy, or not crazy, but somewhat risky, just a little bit risky, they always have whatever I'm afraid of. So I'm sure there's people out there who have similar experiences. Feels bad, man. But Mort's probably just going to go with the Dark Cultist here.
Yeah, it's always like, do you want to spend 2 mana to heal and do nothing just for a card draw? And I don't think that's the answer, so...
Yeah, Ysera's actually pretty effective in this matchup because Freeze Mage does not want to spend double Fireball dealing with Ysera, and most of these decks don't play Polymorph, so the only way really to kill Ysera, besides just AoEing over and over and over and over, is with a Resolved Doomsayer, which is somewhat unlikely to be available that late in the game. Acolyte or Arcane Intellect drawn now for Schwippers. Nice to have that in hand, although he probably won't want to play it this next turn because I think he might have too many cards as he draws his next turn. But 2 Scientists in play means you really don't want to play a Secret, because usually Freeze Mages play 2 Secrets, Ice Barrier and Ice Block, and you want both Scientists to get you one. So it's especially nice to draw both Scientists though and pull those Secrets into play, because drawing Secrets is really bad usually. And especially if you draw a Mad Scientist when you already have both Secrets up, that is a really bad feeling. Acolyte of Pain killed off, finally. And Blackwing Corruptor can take out one of these Mad Scientists, as well as apply pressure.
Yep. All these turns, it's like, you know, that Northshire Cleric has not been dealt with. It's just sitting there, but you can't lose that much tempo just for a card draw, especially when you have plays, right? It's sort of like, if you didn't have a play, you would heal and hope for something to play. But since you do,
Yeah.
the Cleric's just going to sit there and do 1 damage per turn, and that's all it's going to do for now.
Right. I mean, on the other hand, if you knew you had a lot of heals in your deck, you could just spam draw and draw into your heals. But yeah, like we mentioned earlier, it's very unlikely there's anything like that in Mork's deck. I definitely like his play of just playing his biggest threat, dealing with some of the board, and then just going face. So, gotta kill this mage off before he gets enough time to assemble a lot of these damage combos. And Alexstrasza already seen here from Schwippers. You don't want to play it too prematurely against Priest though, because they do usually have a little bit of heal. And if you don't follow it up with Burst right after, then Alexstrasza can just go to waste. So
Right, they'll just keep healing up each turn afterwards, and then by the time you have your combo, you know, they're at 20 some health instead of 15, so your combo doesn't do enough.
Yep. Okay, Arcane Intellect into Frostbolt on the Blackwing Corruptor, preventing some damage, and then trading the Scientist. I think that's actually a bit of a misplay to Arcane Intellect before trading the Scientist, because if you trade your Scientist first, you have 1 less Ice Barrier in your deck, and you really don't want to draw Ice Barrier. I mean, given he didn't draw one anyways, but if he did, that could have been punishment. So, it worked out alright. Cabal, Shadow Priest also drawn from Mork, so Schwippers definitely did the right thing by trading off his Scientist.
So at this point onwards, he will have the Doomsayer Frost Nova combo, enough mana to do it. So Mort has to be careful about what he's doing here. If he overcommits to the board, and he doesn't really have any way to deal with the Doomsayer, which, as we can see, he doesn't, then he's going to be losing a lot of stuff.
Agreed. Yeah, 2 Blizzards is a lot of time to stall out. Optimally, you play one of these with your Doomsayer, because Doomsayer has a very high chance of resolving in this matchup. But yeah, 1 Blizzard now prevents a good amount of damage, worth playing, and then you can play the 2nd Blizzard along with the Doomsayer, because with this hand it's very unlikely you coin out Alexstrasza, seeing as you don't have a ton of burst yet, Strippers.
So Mork here going for the Twilight Guardian. The Azure Drake would just die to a Flame Strike. Same with the Dark Cultist, so I think that would be a decent play. You want to keep up the pressure. You don't want to just, you know, stop playing things. Having 4 guys on the board isn't ridiculous, and he has a lot of minions still in his hand.
Twilight Guardian is a fine play here. It's a big body. It's not too many resources. Like if you commit a bunch of cards onto the board, then you can get punished because they can all get dealt with. But yeah, just going with Twilight Guardian looks fine here. Although there wasn't even a way Mork could have played 2 cards last turn. His cards are all so expensive right now.
That's fair. If he picks up a Holy Nova, then he will have a way to deal with one of the Doomsayers once he gets to 10 mana. With the Vol'jin Holy Nova, but otherwise, yeah, or a Pain if he even runs that. And with a Dragon list, you might run just 1 Holy Nova. So, Mork has to be really careful about how he deals with the Doomsayers. Or rather, not overcommitting. He doesn't really have a way to deal with the Doomsayers, so it's not so much about how he deals with it as just how he plays around it.
Yeah, agreed. I think 1 Holy Nova is pretty standard. I like to see this. I don't want to see the Frostbolt though. He already played a Frostbolt. Now he's out of Frostbolts, and that's a big problem as Freeze Mage. Now Ice Lances can only be enabled by other Ice Lances if you want them to do damage. I personally don't think the Frostbolt was necessary because next turn you're going to Blizzard Doomsayer, so all that Frostbolt really did was prevented 5 damage, and I don't think that's worth it. I think you want it for the burst later on. But we'll see how it plays out for Schwippers here. I mean, I just feel like he's going to run out of burst, but who knows. He's got Pyroblast, he's got a Fireball. Yeah, I wonder if he remembered, though, that was the second Frostbolt, or if it just seemed too easy, too convenient, and he didn't want to pass it up. But Mork's drawing another card here, as he might as well, because pretty much all the cards are doing the same thing.
Alright,
yeah,
Holy Nova finally gets picked up, so he doesn't have 10 mana yet, but after that he can play slightly more aggressively as he will be able to deal with one of them.
Yeah, this is the threshold. It also just seems like the best time to play Doomsayer because it uses your mana perfectly, you have nothing else to do. I hope he doesn't Alex Draza next turn though, because he doesn't have the damage to follow it up right now, and he probably won't for a little while, seeing as that Frostbolt is gone. I mean, especially when he had both Ice Blocks and another Ice Barrier on the way from the deck. I'm only just talking about all this because I am an average Freeze Mage player. I got Golden Mage off of playing Freeze, and I played it a lot, but
that sounds like a lot of time spent playing Freeze Mage.
I mean, I got Golden Warrior off playing Control Warrior as well, so I just played a lot of these control decks for a long time, and it's a lot of fun. But it's not like I did it in like a month. It took a while, but either way, I don't want to harp on him too much for that decision, you know, in case like he might have realized it himself at this point. But we'll see. Okay, just discarding a Cabal Shadow Priest basically, because he has too many cards. Got to get rid of something. Guess he decided Cabal was the least useful. I might have played Shulma instead, but I guess that's a 6/6 instead of a 4/5. So.
Well, also it prevents your opponent from, you know, like if you wanted to play the Alex this turn, which I agree with you, I don't think is a good idea.
Yeah.
But if you played the Alex or you played a Thorson, it would be automatically dealt with.
Yep. That's another nice benefit to that play for sure.
So the good thing is
Mork
one
has a full
Doomsayer is gone, and he's got the Vol'jin Holy Nova combo and 10 mana now. So at this point he can go a little bit more aggressive with just throwing minions on the board.
Yeah, I think Shulma Dark Cultist seems pretty reasonable. You want to empty your hand out a bit before Ysera, because if you Ysera now, you'll overdraw next turn, which you really don't want to do. So you could
also
also
go
just
with
play
Wormrest, Twilight, and Dragonkin.
Or Twilight Guardian, or you said Twilight. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the 2/4/4 or the 7/3, basically.
I like the Dark Cultist, but yeah, this works. Dark Cultist in the case of Flame Strike, I think is a well. Maybe it's not that much better. It's just Dragonkin dies immediately, whereas later if you have a Velen's Chosen, you can target Dragonskin with it. I assume he has Velen's Chosen in here somewhere.
Yeah, he used one already though. Has 12
Yeah.
cards left, so could pick up the other one, but it might also not show up for a while.
Or Power Word Shield, that's another way to buff it. So
Let the pain
Eh.
speak to me.
Acolyte of Pain plus a ping equals a card draw into Arcane Intellect.
Equals
two
more card
draws.
draw into something else equals 3 card draw. No, it's
Yeah.
not.
This is risky if he doesn't play anything here because his hand is full, but you don't really want to play anything, or his hand will be full once the Acolyte is pinged. Wow.
Yeah, so
Um,
if Mort could have done 1 he could technically with Light Bomb.
Yeah, that would actually be.
And have him overdraw.
Ooh,
Oh, okay,
he
yeah,
can
healing.
it.
Yes, yes,
That's
yes.
dirty.
Healing. Healing it works as well. Okay.
Yep. This is definitely going to punish Schwippers. Wow. Playing that Arcane Intellect along with drawing off the Acolyte was really dangerous, and burning cards as Freeze Mage is a terrible feeling. That's an Ice Lance. I mean,
Okay,
it's not as good
not
without the
that bad.
Frostbolt,
Yeah,
but now your other Ice Lance is not going to do damage to face, period. It just needs to be converted into a Fireball through Archmage Antonitis, or it's just a freeze.
Alright.
So
What else is he
Man,
going to toss?
maybe
there?
Schwipper's kind of feeling the pressure here. Cousin Mystic, not too big of a deal, but I
Yeah.
feel like some of these plays might have just been because of maybe nerves, like in the finals, as you are down a game right now. If
Right.
Mort wins this game, he's taking it home for his team.
Yeah, and Freeze Mage is not an easy game to easy class or deck to just,
Yeah,
play it out very clearly. Like, you really have to think a couple turns ahead and figure out how to win. So, it's definitely not easy.
yeah. When I play Freeze Mage, a lot of the time my max with it was like 4 hours before it felt like my brain was pretty fried. And that's even after I got like Golden Mage, I would still just be like, all right, I'm done with this. Like, I'm tired of doing all this math and thinking all these turns out and stuff. So sometimes you just got to play good old Face Hunter, take a break. Even though there's still some things to do with Face Hunter. But anyways, back to the game here.
So here, would
Alex
you...
Strauss is not a
I'm
problem.
thinking if you just use... Okay, he is going to death it, but I was going to say if he uses a Light Bomb instead to deal with it, because all his guys are still alive, and that would save the Shadow Word for Antonitis, even if his guys were frozen.
All right. Pyroblast to the face, I think, makes sense. I think Schwippers realizes this is his last chance. Like, he's got Blood Mage, he's got the 2 fireballs. This is the most damage he can possibly do. Now has to be the time because he just Alex Straza'd. I like this play from Schwippers. It's going along with what he's done so far. Like,
I
he
think
might have realized his mistakes.
I think that's it though, because even with Holy Nova,
Yep.
he can't heal enough to get out of range.
Yeah. So, another thing, with Schwippers' play earlier, even though I said at the time it seemed like a misplay, maybe he just knew for sure that Mork would only have the Holy Nova for heal, so there's like no way he could get out of range once Pyroblast
Right.
Double Fireball is assembled.
Yep.
So that might not have been a misplay. Maybe it's just that Schwippers knows, what's going on here better than I do. So that's very possible.
And with that, Strippers taking game 4, tying it up 2-2, leaving Jukebox and Aurelia to decide who will win the CSL Hearthstone Season 1 Finals.
Oh boy.
No pressure, guys. No pressure.
Game 5. I mean, Georgia Tech hasn't gone to a Game 5 in a while, I think, or...
Yeah, so Aurelia, is Aurelia out of practice? Or does that just mean Aurelia can practice everything that he wants and nobody will know what he will play?
Aurelia's just like the secret weapon, I think. Like, they're just like, hey, if it gets to this point, we need our haymaker, like our anchor player, the carry at the end of the line here to really put the last player on the other team to the test. But Yeah, it will be Jukebox versus Aurelia. Wow. I was thinking there's a good chance it goes to Game 5, but here we are, actually in Game 5, or going into Game 5 momentarily. 4 classes down for each team. I think both Druids are down, and both Warriors, I think. I can't remember for sure,
yeah,
but
it's Druid, Warlock, Warrior, and Priest down for McGill. Hunter, Druid, Paladin, and Mage down for Georgia Tech. So
they
based
still
on
have
that-
Warlock.
Yes. So McGill still has Paladin and Mage. Of course. Oh, and Hunter. I would say those are the 3 main decks. I mean, of course, there's Rogue and Shaman, but we don't really talk about those. On the other hand, Hunter, Druid, Paladin, Mage for Georgia Tech, so leaving the Warlock, Warrior, and what's the other one I'm missing? Yeah, that's it, because I would say Priest is not that common. So Priest, Rogue, and Shaman, of course, still being available. So I'd expect a Warlock or Warrior from Aurelia. Although those are pretty particular decks, so if you're not familiar with them, it's not something you can just pick up and throw in.
Yeah, but Warlock is like one of the best classes to tech out too. If you know really well like which 2 classes your opponent might be playing, you can really tech out your deck for that. And since you have your hero power to draw so much, you can just play like a Reno deck with cards that are teched for those matchups. So
Yep. And with Mage, Paladin, and Hunter up, you could, throw in the cousins. But I like the fact that McGill picked Priest, so they have a lot more options available for their last class if they lose. But at the same time, maybe if they played something else, then they wouldn't have to go to a 5th game.
agreed. Yeah, it's a slight risk to take, but Dragon Priest is a pretty strong deck, especially if you're expecting more of an aggro mage deck. Or all of the other
Or
decks,
a Warlock or
might
Warrior.
be aggro. Yeah, so there's a lot of ways it lines up, but since it was a freeze mage deck, like that was really strong there. Freeze mage, especially in this kind of format, is especially powerful because once Warlock and Druid are out of the way, it can beat pretty much any other deck handily, especially if you tech it out a little bit.
Exactly. So just waiting for these last players to start. No rush here. You obviously want to make sure you get it right.
Yep. Seems like they are in the challenge screen. Who is going to take it? This is the last game of the winter season here at CSL Hearthstone. Once again, registration is open for the spring season. If you guys want to check that out on CSL's website, you can register up until December 31st. That is the deadline. Make sure you guys get that done if you want your school to play in that. And you can see the details on the website. So, these guys are still just deciding, I think. A few last moments of preparation, maybe calming down some nerves in the very last game.
Start up a
the
team
Winter
chat
Hearthstone
with
season.
all of your teammates, which may or may not work out, right? Because you do have a lot more people there to prevent you from doing stupid things, but if it's a clutch moment, then, too many people speaking at the same time might also distract you. And
In any case,
looks like it will be a Paladin versus Priest, so a repeat of our last semifinals game, where it was tied up 2-2 as well, and Priest versus Paladin for, I believe it was McGill versus Princeton, right?
yeah, I don't remember for sure, but I think that sounds right. But this is a Dragon Priest, though, unlike that last matchup. Dragon Priest, it really depends, I think, on whether or not it's more favored than the more Control Priest deck. Like, there's a lot of card choices that can have a big impact in this matchup, such as Light Bomb. Also, Excavated Evil is a card that's really, really good here, but not many people are playing it right now.
Right.
Entomb is solid, especially against Tyrion, but I don't really know if you want that as a 2-of against Paladin. But we'll see as players are taking their time with their mulligans here.
And unfortunately, Jukebox with the Harrison Jones tech not going to pay off.
Yeah, unless a weapon is thought stolen later.
It's like, why thank you for letting me play my card. It was totally in preparation for...
Yeah, it could work out. But the turn 1 Northshire Cleric is pretty strong, as well as a Power Word Shield or Balance chosen to follow up, or both. Northshire Cleric is a very scary card here, as you can't even make a 1/1 now. Shielded Minibot does not look that impressive against that. Although, if you shielded Minibot, you can set up for the muster to kill it the next turn. But Aurelia might play around that with the Power Word Shield. I think Aurelia can get this Northshire Cleric to the point where it just doesn't die. If this next turn she shields
Right.
it, the turn after that she Balance Chosens,
Well, I think
and then she can coin Holy Nova.
you could even coin Balance onto it if you wanted to.
Yeah, but now this Shadow Word Pain actually looks better than...
Yeah, with the
The other
pain,
options.
you can coin out the shield and then balance it next turn as well. So
I think I actually like holding the coin, because like you can pain here next turn. If your opponent plays something small, you can shield and heal for like a bunch of draws, which would be nice because Aurelia doesn't really have a whole lot to do here. So I think I prefer holding the coin and then going for the shield and heal next turn.
I think there's definitely a situation where having that Northshire is going to make a lot of difference because, like you said, like Aurelia doesn't have anything in his hand to play.
Yep.
Everything is reactive, right? So
Gonna go ahead and make that attack onto the Northshire. Interesting choice there. I mean, there's a good chance Aurelia just heals it. Like, a soldier does 1 damage to it anyway, so that's kind of a curious thing. Another Northshire Cleric, John. I don't think you go full Northshire Cleric, though. I wouldn't say it's necessary. I'd say just protect the one, and then have the other one for later on to refill a little bit. But yeah, the Northshire just goes back up to full health, so...
I'm surprised at how poorly Aurelia has drawn because, as you can see, it is a Dragon Priest, and to pick up all of those spells early game and none of the minions, you know, no Wormrest, no dragons, nothing here.
Yeah. Yep, and this is most likely going to just get dealt with now by the True Silver Champion and a 1/1. Goodbye to this Northshire Cleric. Did she only draw 1 card off heal?
From the shield, not from heal. Oh no, it was both shielded and healed, right? So that was.
So I guess it's just like a 1-for-1. It's almost like a more expensive novice engineer that took a True Silver Champion at that point. But yeah, it's still good. True Silver Champion chargers are really valuable in this matchup, so I'd be happy with that.
Well, that's
I've got
annoying.
3/6 Dark Cultist, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I'll just True Silver it. Oh man.
Yeah, and it really gets so annoying when Dark Cultist survives, because then your opponent can play another minion, and now it's like a lose-lose situation. If you leave the Dark Cultist in play, they'll be able to play another minion. Like, no matter what you do, the buff's going to get on something at that point. Unless you can get, like, an equality up or a really strong board where you can somehow deal with both things at once. But seems like it might just end up being a Sludge Belcher here for Jukebox. You could make 1/1s, but I feel like you want to save the True Silver Charge, and you want to have the Muster for later when you actually have Quartermaster. Because I assume he has it in here somewhere.
Yeah, otherwise you're just allowing your opponent to deal with it with a Holy Nova. Whereas if it was Quartermaster, then they have to have some kind of spell damage plus Holy Nova to deal with it.
Yep. Blackwing Corruptor seems like an okay option here. You do not want to use Holy Nova on such a small board. So, and it's okay if the Dark Cultist ends up dying, I think. Balance Chosen is also another reasonable option. It's putting a lot of stuff, a lot of pants on this Dark Cultist, per se, but, I mean, if there's no equality, no silence, this is going to be a really big payoff. I guess Alder Peacekeeper can kind of mess with it, but it's still going to be a 1-9 or 1-10 when it's full health, so still a problem. Big Game Hunter drawn, not that useful in this matchup. Usually the Priest decks don't even play the BGHable dragons anymore. It's usually just Ysera, maybe a Chillmaw, Twilight Guardians, those kind of cards. You don't really want to play the other Sludge Belcher though, because it's just gonna die.
Yeah, I think the
A
Eldor
rough turn here.
is definitely the way to go
Yeah.
here. And depending on how far you want to commit, you could BGH, but I think Hero Power is just okay.
Yeah, I agree. Aldor to neutralize this thing at least a little bit. Make a 1-1. Good to go. Shrinkmeister could potentially be very strong later in this game, but as for now, Blackwing Corruptor is quite powerful onto the Elder Peacekeeper. True Silver Champion can just take it out, but that's right. Don't really want to throw in the Twilight Whelp since it's just going to be a 2-1. Like, it's currently the dragon activating the Blackwing Corruptor, so yeah, it is definitely unfortunate that there aren't any other dragons to enable the Twilight Whelp, but it happens. I mean, other than the lack of dragons, it's actually been a pretty good start for Aurelia, I would say.
So the other thing too is Aurelia could consider about the Quartermaster. If he steals the Sludge, he could
Is someone injured?
kill off one of the... Oh wow, he's actually going to go for the full clear. So that will, of course, also take care of the fact, you know, you don't have to worry about Quartermasters since you killed off the recruits.
This is a really confident play from Aurelia, I feel, because now he's going to lose his second Northshire Cleric. And a lot of the time, besides Azure Drakes, there aren't a whole lot of other ways to draw. I like having a Northshire Cleric kind of like as a reserve, but I mean, that was a decent Holy Nova. Dealt with a lot of dudes. Maybe he was respecting Quartermaster there as well, so can't really fault him for that. But
I think the Holy Nova was
both Northshire
fine,
Clerics
but
fine.
it didn't need to be a Northshire Holy Nova turn, right? There was only one guy that was healed for the Holy Nova, so he could have saved the Cleric for later. It's pretty easy to find one minion on your board to heal.
Okay, I like this aggression from Aurelia. This is a backbreaking play against mid-range decks, as most of these Paladins do not play Equality these days, and so a big board gets to be a big problem for them. Maybe there's one Equality in the deck somewhere, but it's just not as common as it used to be.
It's also sometimes hard to pick up that Shrinkmeister Cabal, you know, when you want it, but here Aurelia had it, and stealing the Sludge Belcher is almost as good as you can go. Of course, you can steal something like Ysera, which, you know, it's not really ran in a mid-range Paladin deck, so a really strong play here, and of course builds up, you know, adds 3 minions to his side of the board, nothing on Jukebox's side, so it's gonna be rough.
Yeah, I think Aurelia definitely realized this is probably the best target I'll get. So good stuff. I mean, Paladin Shredder's another good one, but Belcher does seem a bit better. Ysera drawn as well. This is looking really good for Aurelia right now, just snowballing his lead with all of these dragons finally enabling each other. Good to go. And can Ysera, like, next turn, I mean, I don't think you have any reason not to. You could be a little afraid of Equality, I guess, but he might end up holding on to it for a little while longer. But if your opponent has Equality,
Oh my god!
Okay, I mean, he can kill it, but wow.
Yeah,
Kind of
but
scary moment there for a second.
he might have attacked before killing it, right? If he just wasn't thinking about it too much. Just attacked face and then... I guess he would have saved his guys to deal with the second half of Shredder anyway. So generally, you're not that worried about it.
Yep. Wow. An equality is drawn for Jukebox. Okay.
No consecrate though, so it's not that easy to deal with any of this.
Yeah.
Me
He needs the second piece to the combo. He's gonna need the consecration to go with this, or else I think he's in some big trouble. Man. I mean, I guess you could just truce over here, make a 1-1, maybe play the BGH just to do something, because you're so far behind, you don't want to sit back. Wow, so much on the line here. You're not feeling good as Jukebox. You need some miracle comeback. Series tied up at 2-2. This is not where you want to be. Oh no, he throws down the equality. I think this is going to be the green light for Aurelia to drop the Ysera. And that is going to be heartbreaking for Jukebox. Like, Ysera, without equality, what do you do?
Yeah, and it's right on 9 mana as well, so... It's not even like, I really had to hold it and not play it out. It's like, hey, this is the first turn he's able to play it. Does he go for it? He also picks up a second Holy Nova, so if he wants to keep all his guys alive, I think. Of course, it won't be able to play around Consecrate, but it does mean, obviously, Jukebox didn't have the Consecrate last turn, so he only has one card draw to get it, and if not, he's pushing all that damage to face.
Yeah, Holy Nova, I think, is the safe play there. You already see that Jukebox is down to 2 cards, 3 with the draw. Like, what are you really afraid of? I mean, you might as well just play around Deathwing, not play Ysera, and just chill. But we need a miracle, and that's not a miracle, that's a Piloted Shredder. I think this means that Aurelia... I don't want to say it yet officially. We're going to wait for the concession. The well play comes out from Jukebox. Aurelia takes the game. That is a 3-2 win for Georgia Tech over the McGill Redmen. Congratulations to them. What a series. 5 games. What a conclusion. Wow.
And that is it. Congratulations to Georgia Institute of Technology for taking the first season of CSL Hearthstone.
Yeah, this is super exciting. Like, Aurelia had such an interest, like a weird start that game. I mean, it was good, but it just kept snowballing and snowballing. He drew her dragons, and Ysera came up, but Ysera wasn't put into play. It didn't need the Ysera, it just needed all those other minions that worked together to beat down Aurelia's opponent, and yeah, that was pretty sick.
And with that concludes our CSL Hearthstone season for the year. Don't forget to sign up for your schools. Deadline is by the end of the year, December 31st. So get your teams in. You can start... I guess you can start making multiple teams for your school as well, right? Is that a thing?
I'm not sure.
Like
Probably
I'm like, I feel like I should figure that out.
About that,
yeah.
But
I'm sure everything's on the website though, so go ahead, check that out. And for those of you who are like, oh man, I didn't know they had Hearthstone this season, this is your chance. Finals are almost over. Go find all your friends, gather them together, practice, and get started for the next season.
Yep. Once again, we would like to congratulate the Georgia Tech Hearthstone team on taking the win. We would like to thank everybody for watching, all of us here at CSL Hearthstone. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed. We would also like to thank Blizzard and Twitch for making this event possible. We hope to see you guys back next season. Once again, I am at Root Nomodogan on Twitter, and Lucia's at Lucia Fireball on Twitter. You'll see that on the screen. And once again, thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you next season.